Hello and welcome to another edition of Recycle. Don't be a waster. In today's episode, I suppose I just want to get something off my chest, have a moan, or in a more positive light, suggest a new initiative. I feel a little bit like a bad politician. I always say politicians announce things 9 times and do nothing. You know, they call for a road, say a road should be built. They call for a further study on that road. They call for funding for the road. They then announce the road might be built. They then announce the road is starting to be built, and then they open the road. So, they milk it for everything it's worth. I suppose today what I'm doing is I'm calling for a recycling initiative. One of the things at Waster that really bugs me is when people say, oh, can I recycle this? Can I recycle that? And often, yes, you can, but there is nowhere to drop it off. And, I think the area that really is, I suppose I see a lot of potential is clothing, stuff like shoes, specifically shoes, and also specifically clothing. They're often in very good quality, but maybe not good enough to be dropped off at, that they could be sold. So it can't go to people like Vinnie's, the Smith family, those sort of organisations, where they sell them for profit. And then the money's used for, charitable works. But there's clearly a huge amount of items that are still have life left in them, just don't fit people. Could be given to charity, could be given to, I suppose, people in need, could be given overseas to people who require them. And the other area is books, like literature books, things people have read, old textbooks. That aspect, and people feel bad about throwing these out because clearly the wisdom doesn't decay, the wisdom's still in those pages, and it's just finding someone who can take it and use those and take advantage of it, who obviously needs them. Clearly getting in touch for, finding the person, the market in theory, between the people in need and the people who want to give is the big issue. There's companies, I think it's focusing particularly on shoes, on runners, whereby they can be given a new life, and I think oftentimes they're given to kids in Africa just for running around. Focusing on running shoes or training shoes. But I think that certainly in Australia there's a major appetite for this sort of stuff. Clearly there's constant supply, people growing out of items. It's not the style they're looking for anymore, or house clearances, whatever it is. There's clearly always going to be people wanting to get rid of books but not wanting to throw them out because it's a real pity, clothing, shoes, etc., and people who would take them if they are available for free. And I would suggest, a government initiative whereby you could have a facility, drop-off facilities, and people who could go in and browse. One of the very interesting things I saw was in Turkey. It was on the internet. In Turkey, garbage collectors had built their own library based on books included in rubbish bins, and they'd take them and they'd put them in this library. And I'm sure you could build lending libraries or just even books people can take away, large in nearly every suburb in Australia. And so that is an initiative that I would, I think there's a lot of room for it. It's just a facility whereby you have someone sitting there. You can come in, drop off your clothes or your shoes. They take them and say, yes, these are fine. And then off you go. And it would stop a lot of the fly tipping that you see at Smith family or Vinnie's drop-off points where people, fundamentally just drop their own junk on the doorstep despite the sign saying that, they don't need that stuff, because Vinnie's and people like that have to pay to dispose of stuff that's not up to standard. So this is something that I think will be very useful, clearly for people like school students, uni students. If the books were collected, put in order, I'm sure the school textbooks or the uni textbooks that people had this year, there's people will want them next year. And that obviously applies in all aspects. Once you've read a book, there's ones you want to reread, there's other ones that you don't. And so I think this would be a good initiative. Shoes, running shoes, clothing, clearly there is an appetite for it, but I think there's definitely room for, probably not at the level where stuff is almost pristine and can be resold, or vintage where it's got some sort of, some coolness element or collectability element. Just standard stuff. I think there's also room for that, and I think once you collected and have it in one central area. If it's not up to sellability, it could be used for recycling, for rags, etc. And we're seeing that happen in places like H&M, where they do collect old clothing. But I think a centralised point would be very useful. I suppose that's all I wanted to add today. I think those three sectors, clothing, shoes and books, I think would be the most opportune to start with. And at the end of the day, everyone has them and they're never going to go out or run out. Okay, we'll leave it there today. I'll be interested to see what people's feedback is. And of course, in the meantime, recycle. Don't be a waster.